Hello, I'm Darren Grimes for GB News, and I'm here at ARC Conference. Now, my guest right now is the none other than Dennis Prager, a wonderfully successful radio host. He has revived conservative talk radio like you wouldn't believe. The man gets so many views that it would make me blush. Through PragerU, he has given a new generation ideas that they simply aren't exposed to throughout much of the mainstream media and the established press. So I'm delighted to have him here today. Dennis, you're also a very successful author. I could go on and on with that introduction, but thank you for your time.
You're a joy. Thank you.
Dennis, I wonder, you're here in London. Over recent days, we've seen that there have been people on the streets coming out in favour of Palestine. You are a Jewish man yourself. I wonder, do you look at what's taking place in capital cities throughout the West and conclude that the West and civilization itself is in peril?
Well, I knew civilization is in peril for quite a number of years. There is a terrible combination of the left, and I don't mean liberals, I mean the left. I always make a distinction. The left and that part of the Muslim world which wishes to destroy Israel. How big that segment is unknowable, but it's not small, and it certainly includes a great number of Palestinians. There is an attempt to do what the Nazis did, and I never have used the parallel to the Nazis with anyone in all of my public life. What we saw on October 7th was a perfect parallel. There's a Jew, a Jewish baby is as worthy of death as a Jewish soldier. That was Hitler's view, that's Hamas's view, Hezbollah's view, Iran's view. There is only one country on earth targeted for extinction. It is a Jewish country the size of El Salvador. And so I have to say, if you have to be a Jew to be worried, it's over. As I say all the time, non-Jews who dismiss Jew hatred as the Jews' problem are fools, are suicidal fools. Tens of millions of people died because non-Jews dismissed Hitler as the Jews' problem.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we saw yesterday in London's Liverpool Street Station, which is a major train station in Britain, it was basically occupied, Dennis, and the police did absolutely nothing. And it strikes me that they're across the West, actually, because we see this in the United States of America too, in certain states, that actually it's one rule for certain groups and it's another rule for everybody else. And what I mean by that is you can see kidnapped Israeli children on posters being torn down, and that's fine. But actually, if you're intimidating Jewish people and the Jewish population across the West, well, crack on with it, you know? That seems to have a free and open license. And I just worry, if Jew hate is okay, what other forms of hate and intolerance will become okay?
Well, the next group I would assume would be Christians. I mean, you already have some Christian pastors arrested in Europe for saying that there are only two sexes, or for refusing to marry two men or two women. Whether one thinks that's right or wrong is irrelevant. These people are allowed not to conduct a marriage that goes against their religious principles. No imam would conduct such a marriage, but they're not hated for that. Christians are hated for that. So who is next is a very interesting question. What is definite is someone is next. The Jew hater is the civilization hater. It's not like nice people, otherwise nice people, hate Jews. The Nazis were not otherwise nice people. Hamas is not otherwise nice people. And it almost baffles one, because actually I'm not baffled. I wrote a book on this many years ago, Why the Jews? So the truth is, it all confirms what I believed all of my life. Jew hatred is unique. It is the only eradicating hatred. Poles don't like Germans, Germans don't like Russians, Russians don't like Ukraine. I mean, and they make a war. They have wars. But the vision of exterminating, that's unique to Jew hatred. And to see it, one final word. In the Passover Seder, there is a statement that is thousands of years old in Hebrew. In every generation, somebody arises to eradicate us. Not persecute us, not even enslave us, eradicate us.
Yeah, and that's in and of itself the most troubling thing that anyone could ever possibly say.
Yes.
Now, Dennis, moving to the United States of America, it's a country that I love, but it's a country, I think, in a state of ultra-polarization, you could argue. Now, do you think that that has come exclusively from the liberal left? Do you think that has been stirred by, as some would argue, by the presidency of Donald J. Trump? What do you think is going to happen in 2024, and is there a way you can ever bring America back together again?
I wish, but yes, first of all, I attribute it overwhelmingly to the left. This division existed prior to Donald Trump, and it would exist if Governor DeSantis of Florida were the candidate. The division would not be one whit less. I am not a Trumpista, and I am not a never Trumper. I am not interested in the man. I'm interested in America. He was a great president. Would he be a great nominee? I don't know. But the division is caused. We want to wait a moment?
If you could.
The division is caused by the left. I always ask people, say, why can't the left and right meet? Okay, I believe there are only two sexes. I don't believe a man can become a woman. You believe a man can become a woman. Where do we meet? Yeah. Tell me where the middle ground is.
Yes, there is none. Yeah.
You're okay with drag queen story hours for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds in American schools? I'm not okay with it. The sexualization of children is a crime. You're okay with 18-year-old girls getting their breasts removed because they say they're boys? I'm not. So where exactly are we to meet? You think America is systemically racist? It is the least racist country in the history of the world that had multiple races in it. We elected a black president twice. Quite a systemically racist country. I wish there were a middle ground. Unfortunately, there isn't.
And I wonder then, focusing on the success of outlets like Prager, you are ideally placed, I think, to discuss another theme at this conference, which is telling a better story. And what I mean by that is a lot of the West story that's told to young people today is one in which we are a unique evil that the world has ever known. The West is a unique horror. Colonialization, we need to decolonize the curriculum, Black Lives Matter, the whole ideology behind that, Marxism 101. PragerU has had phenomenal success. Do you attribute that to young people simply wanting to seek out ideas that they aren't exposed to at all in their schools and public schools and all the rest of it, universities too, universities possibly worse, Dennis? What do you attribute that to, and what is the West story that we ought to be telling?
So I gave long answers prior. The answer is yes to your the first part of your question. They hear rational, calm truths, and they often respond, "Wow, I never knew that." As regards the West story, the great black leader, Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
The man was a great leader, period. He happens to have also been black. He grew up a slave. He escaped slavery, became one of the greatest forces for good in American history. In his autobiography, he writes, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't memorize lines well, but he says basically, it is Britain that, and then America, that liberated the black all over the world. Who was taught that? If you even repeat that, you are somehow a white supremacist. Was Frederick Douglass a white supremacist? So here is the key for everyone to understand. Truth is not a left-wing value. It is a liberal value. It is a conservative value. It is not a left-wing value. And therefore, to make up lies about the West has been the greatest force for good in the history of Earth. If you care about goodness, you want to preserve the West. Full stop, as you would say.
Absolutely. So do you think then, just finally, do you think then the West and its policy makers have been robust enough in actually saying what you've just said, Dennis, which doesn't strike me as controversial, but it has become controversial to say what you have just said there?
Yes.
Many viewers at home will be watching and thinking nothing that you have said ought to be remotely controversial, but the sad reality is that it is, and we need to do something about it. What is that something?
Well, you basically implied it with telling the West story. A civilization with flaws. Look, the question about slavery, okay, which is so dominant now. So take the United States of America. America had slavery. Slavery is an evil, period, full stop, absolutely. But the question is not, did America have slavery? Everyone had slavery. Black tribes in Africa, indigenous peoples all over Mesoamerica, South America, North America. Every society had slaves.
And of course many still do.
Well, right, but yeah, you're right. But let's talk about America at that time. Everyone did. So you don't ask, when you judge the past, you don't ask, what did they do like everyone else did? You ask, what did they do that no one else did? No one else abolished slavery like the West began to abolish slavery. No one in the world. The Muslim world was built on black slaves. And they castrated most of the black slave men so that they couldn't reproduce. Whereas that does not take place in the West. So whenever that is said, oh, he's justifying slavery, you have to be a sick, distorted mind to think that that's a justification of slavery. All I'm saying is there are degrees of evil. And that's not taught. How many uni kids in England or in America know about Arab slavery? Zero. All they know is America had slaves. That's all they know, that Washington had slaves. But Washington built a country that abolished slavery and made it possible. 4 million blacks have moved to America in the last few decades. 4 million from the Caribbean and Africa. Why would they move to a systemically racist country? Are they stupid? Did Jews move to Germany in the 1930s? Of course not. People don't move to where they're hated. They move to where they'll be, in fact, loved.
Absolutely. And free.
And free.
Dennis Prager, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.